All right. G'day. Welcome back to Collectivitis, podcast where we dissect the disease that is collectivism. My name is Pietro. This is Floyd again. How you doing, Floyd?
Yeah, I'm good, mate. How about yourself?
I'm pretty good. You know, just the usual, just some shit fuckery to react to. What's been happening this week for you, man?
Yeah, just dealing with a lot of shit fuckery. I think we'll be talking about it a lot. But apart from that, everything's been pretty chill, like personal life wise. Yeah, just going along and surfing the wave of life.
Yeah, it's I don't know. It's almost like a bit boring. I think I reflect on some of the more momentous times that we've had where like week by week there was the intersection between your personal life and like what the government was going to let you do and what whether we were in or out and all the rest. But I don't know. I just thought that was a more exciting time. It's almost like now I'm just reading these news stories. Now I'm just like
Yeah,
listening
yeah,
to these news stories.
yeah.
It's
Well,
it's a bit detached. I want it to happen to me again.
COVID might be coming back, so we might be talking in a different scale about how our life kind of intersects with all the craziness going around. Let's hope not, but
Yeah. Well, I mean, at least then you have no choice but to be informed. Like
yeah,
everyone has to be on board with what we're
yeah,
talking
yeah,
about because
yeah,
it's not
yeah.
like, oh, I haven't really paid attention to what's been happening in the news this week. No, you don't have a choice. It's you're not allowed out of your house again.
Mm, mm,
Um,
mm.
but no, of course, we actually hope that lockdowns don't occur, and we certainly hope that what's been happening in the media that we're going to talk about today doesn't occur to either one of us. Because
Oy.
because yeah, as the moral of today is as seems to be the moral quite often, the media is a horrendous lying piece of shit organization, and the times they accidentally do hit on truth, it's usually just coincidental to further their own bullshit fucking
Yeah.
statist cooperation. So I don't know. We'll let's watch the video on this one first, and then we'll get some thoughts. So for those of you who don't have the context on this, Russell Brand has recently come under pretty intense fire in the media, not just worldwide, starting from the UK press and then sort of spreading its tendrils across the world. And normally this kind of thing wouldn't have been particularly interesting. I don't think this would have been particularly interesting if this story had come out about Russell Brand 10 years ago when he was known as this kind of womanizing playboy, dickhead, former drug addict. I don't know. At the time, he was probably still a contemporary drug addict. But what's interesting is I think the context around which a lot of this is coming out now. So let's get the story first, and then let's talk about it.
Hello there, you awakening wonders. Now, this isn't the usual type of video we make on this channel where we critique, attack and undermine the news in all its corruption, because in this story, I am the news. I've received two extremely disturbing letters, or a letter and an email, one from a mainstream media TV company, one from a newspaper, listing a litany of extremely egregious and aggressive attacks, as well as some pretty stupid stuff like my community festival should be stopped, that I shouldn't be able to attack mainstream media narratives on this channel. But amidst this litany of astonishing, rather baroque attacks are some very serious allegations that I absolutely refute. These allegations pertain to the time when I was working in the mainstream, when I was in the newspapers all the time, when I was in the movies. And as I've written about extensively in my books, I was very, very promiscuous. Now, during that time of promiscuity, the relationships I had were absolutely always consensual. I was always transparent about that then, almost too transparent. And I'm being transparent about it now as well. And to see that transparency metastasized into something criminal that I absolutely deny makes me question, is there another agenda at play? Particularly when we've seen coordinated media attacks before, like with Joe Rogan, when he dared to take a medicine that the mainstream media didn't approve of. And we saw a
All right, let's leave that there. He goes on with more of the same sort of direction, but I did want to talk about Joe Rogan as well, which so I don't want to let Russell Brand cut me off with the
Okay.
very point that he's making, but I'll let you at it first. What are your instinct responses to that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't know. It's one of those, every time, it has to do with stuff like the R word and things like that. It's kind of, you go with the political correct aspect of like, oh, well, that's kind of a bit dodgy. Let's kind of check it out. But I think like it's horrible that it comes at a time when his stardom has gone to a new era of things, and he's an outspoken person against what's going on, I guess, in the mainstream, and challenging the system, whatever kind of term you want to call it. So to see how it plays out, I mean, what have they leveled charges against him, or are these just accusations at this stage? Do you know?
I'm not sure. The
Okay.
last I'd heard, now this video is 5 days old now, so there may
Yep.
be updates since then. The last I'd heard is that this is all kind of coming out, and I don't think charges are leveled
Okay.
yet, but I could be wrong there.
So
Sorry, you go.
it's just essentially like Russellgate or Brandgate now.
Yeah, well, Russellgate, I think the point you make is good. The reason I think that it's always the R word that seems to keep coming up, and not retard, the other one, is that it kind of
Retribution, I
is
don't know.
is it's so severe, like it's so that it can't, like you can't but consider it with the lens that you're considering it. Like if someone gets accused of that, I have to go, oh well, shit, yeah, no, I have to figure out whether that's true or not now, because it's such a serious allegation. Like you're forced to contend with it regardless of who's accused with it, which makes it an incredibly useful weapon to bludgeon people into submission with. The point about Joe Rogan that he makes is, Joe Rogan went famously against railed against CNN for accusing him of using horse dewormer instead of ivermectin. I think that's the point he was making.
Made his face look all dilapidated and stuff like that. Like, yeah.
Yeah, they did everything to lambast him, and the video goes on. He says, Joe Rogan's been using ivermectin, which is more commonly used as horse dewormer. Yeah,
you said it.
And at that time, being against the being a cooker and saying, anti-government, anti-health organizations person was the worst attack they could level at you, because if you were going against this stuff, you were killing grandma. Whereas now, if you're Russell Brand, the thing they level against you, because it's no longer that level of hysteria, is that you are a potential abuser of women. Let's use that word so that YouTube doesn't.
You don't get the double strike.
Yeah, so that we don't get demonetized from our $0.00. I would hate to be demonetized.
You're sorry, algorithm. We love you.
But yeah, I think what's also interesting about the Russell Brand thing is that so we talk about Russell Brand. I would argue that he is as close to libertarian as you can be without using the word. I know he's very careful in his videos to avoid using specifically the label of himself as libertarian, but everything he advocates for, every video ends with him making some kind of monologue about how he wants to detach corporate power from the tendrils of the government, because he wants to see, and it's regular people getting hurt, and he just wants a more peaceful and free society and all the rest of it, without saying libertarian, because that would maybe pigeonhole him and put him in a box where he likes to be this sort of eccentric, larger than life character. He is a libertarian. He's advocating for libertarian things.
And it's kind of, it's horrible. You don't want to see someone from the left getting to that point. It's all right to see someone from the right do it, because they're the evil can become evil, but you can't see kind of like the sanctimonious group of, oh my god, he's a celebrity and people watch him and follow him and look at his journey into this more individual, accepting person, this person questioning the state. We can't have that.
Yeah, and to that point is that they've already tried to turn him into a right-wing extremist and a right-winger. It's throughout COVID, that was the attack that they leveled at him, was he's a right-winger. he's espousing right-wing talking points and right-wing extremist views, which, you know, are such extremist views as we shouldn't be locked down and we shouldn't be forced to be injected with something to keep our jobs. Now, so in a sense, they've done that first part of deconstructing Russell Brand in order to then vilify him, because now he's part of this tainted group that they love to vilify. That was like a necessary first step. I don't know about you. I remember when I first started really watching Russell Brand, I think he'd already made the switch a long time beforehand, because I only kind of started watching him through late 2020 or maybe mid 2021, when he was already, because I didn't know. The most recent memory of mine of Russell Brand was he is this womanizing playboy, you know, kind of douchebaggy lefty guy who thinks he's really clever and really, his eccentricity allows him to be really verbose and makes him sound really smart, but he is just kind of a douchebag. But then I started watching him throughout COVID, and I was like, holy shit, this guy is actually spot on, and he's actually putting a lot on the line. He's actually risking a lot here where he didn't used to. He used to go with the mainstream while pretending to be this this eccentric dude. And so, you know, it was kind of a shock for me to see that Russell Brand had made this turn. I hadn't noticed that for a while. It kind of went under the radar, but I know that he is extremely popular now, probably even more popular than he was then. He's grown even since. He's an extremely loud voice on the right.
Well, for me, like Russell Brand, I knew him from like Forgetting Sarah Marshall, and then kind of flew under the radar until probably like maybe the start of this year. Like, I mean, I'll watch him. I watch based off the guests he has. I think he had RFK on. He had some other good people to watch, and things like that. But yeah, I mean, yeah, it's really, after looking at all these news articles and what's happening, kind of seeing that journey of him. I didn't get to see it firsthand, but yeah, it's really I hate to use the word road to Damascus, because that's a Christian term. I don't want to kind of level that against that, you know, kind of separation of church and state, we'll call it. But kind of like, yeah, that red pill moment. There we go. Red pill. Everyone uses that these days.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and that's I think the term red pill is actually really good, because like by definition, I think the most typical definition of it is taking the red pill is realizing that what you are being told by the media and the institutions that are supposed to have all this legitimacy is actually a facade that actually no one in the system believes anymore. No one in the mainstream or the institutions or the media actually believes the things they're saying. They just put that up for the general population. I know a lot of people try to put red pill as being just, you know, like the Republican red of red pill, but I think the most generic term is just that. And I think that's perfect. And I think if anything, that's the most marketable like libertarian first step that there is, because for the vast majority of people, you're not going to be able to get them into Rothbard and into the non-aggression principle at first, and how the free market should replace all these public institutions. That first step is they have to realize that there is a great big lie that is sitting right in front of us, and that is that the government is truthful and benevolent and not acting in self-interest, and the decisions that they make are actually democratically done and not pushed by, secret corporations that'll never face the light of day and the light of consequences. And I think that's that message there, which is, even though it's broader and it's, I guess, more easily accessible, is the message that they're more worried with halting and with stopping. And that's the exact message that Russell Brand has. That's the exact message that Joe Rogan has now. Like he found that through talking to a whole lot of people over a long period of time. But that's essentially Joe Rogan's same message now, is that red-pilled idea. The other two I would add to that list, who have also been violently attacked by the media and the institutional powers that be, are Jordan Peterson and Andrew Tate. The other two really big ones. So yeah. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? You're not a fan of Mr.
Tate? No, Andrew Tate's great. He's great for a laugh. Entertaining guy. But I think both of them, you know, I think it could be the same with Joe Rogan and Russell Brand as well. It's like you see them, what are they looking to do? They're looking to empower these downtrodden kind of men at the same time. They're even, yeah, I know women who love Jordan Peterson as well, and things like that. Women obviously love Russell Brand, not surprising, but it's almost like, hey, power base that we deem insignificant, kind of rise up. You have power. I think all four of them, you look at what they're saying, it's, hey, you have this ability at the very least to question. I think more for Jordan Peterson and Andrew Tate, it's that more rise up, you have power type of thing. Take ownership of yourself. I don't think they specifically say the state, but don't let the state kind of coddle you. I mean, I think maybe that's, as a libertarian, I'm thinking that way. But yeah, be an individual and rise up and take control. I'm not sure about Joe Rogan. I just know Joe Rogan is a great interviewer. I think he's probably one of, if not the best interviewer on the planet right now. And then Russell Brand, yeah, he's kind of going through that phase of questioning, which, you know, make you drink poison for doing that.
Yeah, I think, I'm not sure if I think both Andrew Tate and Jordan Peterson refer to more often the government and maybe corporations. I don't know if they necessarily say the state, but also the state is almost that level of inaccessible language that won't appeal to because most people don't think in those terms. They think of the government rather than the state, which, you know, even though it's technically not the word they're looking for, they're thinking of the same entity.
Well, it's same but different, really.
Yeah, yes. And both, I think, how I describe Andrew Tate is like the edgy 14-year-old kid's version of Jordan Peterson.
Okay.
Like, he essentially has the exact same message, but you know, he dresses it up with, you know, women and cars and like Top
and getting
G
laid.
and and just talking about how good he is, and this like ultra egotistical. Whereas Jordan Peterson talks in this voice, and like he also, in the same way as Russell Brand, a little bit over verbose, so that he sounds like he's this I don't know, this real guru. I love both their messages, but I think that's kind of the point, is that both of them are essentially just messengers for that most basic insight that most people need to have for libertarianism to ever even enter the public discussion. And that first insight is, you know, the government is not benevolent. The government is doing things through insidious other interest groups that you have no control over. And if we are going to give them all of the power in the world to control our lives, we should really make sure that they are at least beholden to us. And both Jordan Peterson, who was attacked, now Jordan Peterson didn't have sexual allegations thrown at him because I don't think anyone would believe them. Like, that would come across as,
I don't know. He's a giga chad, bro. Like,
like, he's such a dweeby guy who's been married for 1,000,000 years and you know, has a whole things on marriage. I think that would be too obvious. Like, if they went after him for sexual assault.
What they could do for Jordan Peterson, though, they could do. I reckon I shouldn't recommend anything. I reckon if they turned around and been like, well, he was secretly like seeing men or something like that. I reckon that, but you can't do that now because that's kind of violating the whole wokeness part of it. But that could be
right. In the 80s or 90s, maybe that would have been the takedown strategy on Jordan Peterson. Was Jordan Peterson likes men. Now it's, you know, they try to take away his medical license, or his psychologist license, and he has to go through re-education if he wants to get it back. And obviously that's something that he can't do. And so that way he was kind of dragged through the mud in a way to silence him. Of course, he has the advantage now that he's too big to be silenced. Which is another point. So Andrew Tate also, you know, in a Romanian prison for God knows how long for accusations of sexual related stuff. Now, look, and the whole thing with Russell Brand and Andrew Tate is that you can't come too vehemently to their defense because they are being accused of the most horrific, heinous shit. Now, if it comes out that they are not guilty of the most horrific, heinous shit, it'll come out years later when their name is already associated with nothing other than the accusation of the horrific, heinous shit. And, you know, their profile has diminished, and they've been to some extent censored and all of that stuff. Now, the other interesting point...
You could say it would be his brand.
You could say it would be his brand. I'm sure there's lots of like brand damage related puns in this for Russell Brand. You could say Andrew has met a horrific Tate, like fate.
Oh, jeez. Yeah. Okay. I'll pay that.
You'll pay that. Oh, as it came out of my mouth, I didn't want to pay that. I was. But the point that I was making was that these four clearly have ascended to a point of public notoriety where they can no longer be shut down by the conventional means of they censoring and accusations and whatnot. And to an extent, this is what happened to Donald Trump as well. They threw everything at him, including sexual allegations, which in his case, he had extremely over-sexualized remarks on tape, and still that couldn't take him down. So there's clearly a point where the accusations leveled at you will no longer affect you enough, and you kind of have this momentum where you're going to be fine. You're going to be able to make a living through your public persona, regardless of whether you're cancelled through the mainstream. That's fantastic for these four, and Donald Trump, if you want to include them, the kind of the five horsemen of the apocalypse type characters. But the broader point is that through indirect like censoring, how many people has this shut up? How many people have shut themselves up because of this? Because they see the figureheads being attacked in such a violent manner, and they know that while they might be able to withstand the pressure and they might be able to deflect some of the attacks, the average person, that ruins their life. And even not the average person, even like a middle high sort of popularity, notoriety figure, they can be absolutely destroyed to the point of no return unless they've hit that point of enough popularity to overcome this kind of thing. So those middle range voices, which in many cases probably are reporters and journalists and the ones who within the mainstream are trying to maybe expose these ideas, they're self-censoring because of these very open and loud and obvious attacks. And that's kind of, we think, oh yeah, Andrew Tate, he's winning against these people attacking him. He's more popular than ever. Donald Trump's more popular than ever. Jordan Peterson's more popular than ever. But at what cost? At the cost of all these other voices being silenced.
Well, and who is self-censoring talking about this? You know, how many people? I mean, I'll say for sure. Like when I'm not the biggest fan of Donald Trump. I think he's a funny guy and stuff, but I prefer him to win the presidency over Biden or the other guy from California. But it's like Newsom, there we go. It's like everyone else is shutting up about it. Not like I couldn't bring up Donald Trump in my workplace. I couldn't be like, yeah, Donald Trump's good compared to Biden. I'd prefer him rather than Biden. And this is causing, let's just say hundreds of thousands of people to not bring up and not have these conversations. Even Jordan Peterson, I had to pull a friend aside and be like, oh yeah, man, Jordan Peterson, and he's just like, yeah, man, yeah, Jordan's cool and stuff like that. I really got a lot out of him. These really people that just have something to say. You can't go on because either if it's like Russell Brand's case, he's been alleged of something, and people say, why do you even listen to someone who's interested in that or not has done something like that, or Andrew Tate, oh, he's just a misogynist, you shouldn't be listening to that, you're a bad person. So yeah, the smaller level people that maybe are getting totally shut down from this or aren't even doing something, and then you've got the everyday people who are just not even bringing this up, not even having that conversation, and getting through to people and having a discourse, which is going to cause all of these things to kind of go away because you're actually talking about it.
Yeah, and look, that's another, that brings about an even more kind of pertinent point is that the reason that you can't bring this stuff up, like in my workplace, for example, the same. If I remember a couple of times a colleague would bring up, oh, this disgusting pig Andrew Tate, I hope he gets shanked in prison and dies. Now, in that context, how am I meant to say, well, I think there's some nuance around it. Like, I don't like everything he says, but actually has a really positive message for young men. No, in a way, the accusation that's been leveled at these people is leveled at anyone who doesn't condemn them absolutely. If I said something like, oh, actually, I don't mind Donald Trump. Now, he's almost so indestructible by this thing that you're allowed to say it no matter what. But if I had said in 2016 or 2015, I don't mind Donald Trump, then you don't mind someone who says horrific things like grab them by the pussy and is a misogynist, rapist, piece of shit, Mexican hating, whatever. Like it's almost like if you don't outright condemn these people, the accusation is somehow leveled at you as well. And that's for me to not only have the bravery to tarnish my reputation in a social environment where I actually gain nothing from tarnishing it, unlike these other people where social media will take clips and show, hey, look, he's not scared of the system or the matrix. Like, no, I gain nothing. I just get complete hatred, complete turning against me from my social circle. So yeah, you silence yourself, and that's the desired effect at the end of the day. More than actually destroying these people is shutting down the conversations at a household or at a collegial level.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Cool. Well, let's stick on the topic of the media being pieces of shit.
Yes. One thing about Russell Brand, though, that I wanted to bring up. This morning, it came out that the UK government has gotten in touch with Rumble and has asked if he was being demonetized, and in a very kind of forceful way said, well, you should demonetize him. Rumble has come out and they've said no. So we're seeing like the extent of government intervention that is happening just because of this issue, where you've got people putting pressure on a video platform, because and you can read it. It's on Rumble's Twitter page. So they've posted the letter they were sent as well as the response. And it was pretty much like, well, YouTube's done this, you should do it as well because you're enabling all this type of stuff. And yeah, Rumble just said like, we don't necessarily agree, but we're going to keep him on there, like at least until there's been some sort of outcome. So I think that's really good. And you're seeing some people rise up for it. And I mean, Russell Brand's a huge star for Rumble. I don't know how many people he might have brought over there. So yeah, free speech. Woo.
Yeah. Well, that's, I mean, there's a lot of connotations with that, because that is very reminiscent of the whole ACMA bill that they're trying to pass here in Australia, where the idea is pretty much exactly that. And we did an episode on it where essentially like the wording of it is used to describe, how certain speech needs to be censored for these reasons. And the examples they give are extreme examples and stuff that, might not have an immediate recognition from someone reading it, that what's going to be used is to shut down other speech. But that's exactly what they're trying to do. And Rumble is a perfect example of something that they want to shut down. Rumble and Twitter now are like the two most hated enemies, because in gaining popularity and still refusing, like being born out of a rejection of that corporatist collusion with government and doing whatever they say, by continuing to reject that, they only grow in popularity because there's a whole ocean of people who are completely displeased with this. Look, that doesn't surprise me at all, except for, look, I'm a little bit surprised at the gall of the UK government to go to Rumble, considering how outspokenly pro-free speech Rumble is. Rumble's response doesn't surprise me, which is a good thing. It's only further voicing towards Rumble's credit, and I hope that that's the direction they continue to go in, until some hyper-billionaire takeover Bill Gates does the opposite Elon and takes over Rumble and turns it into a no speech platform.
Maybe until they start making some real significant money. But I think going on that as well, and it's I think Rumble and Twitter, X, whatever, they're actually getting people monetized because of it, and they're actually making money. I think maybe if it's on BitChute, which I know BitChute has a lower kind of recognition, they might not care because, you know, Russell Brand can still make a living. How dare he make a living? You know, how dare he even be able to afford legal counsel? Like, we just need to shut him up and put him in bloody prison.
Yeah, look, it's really reassuring that there is this alternate avenue now. Like, and even more reassuring than like 3-4 years ago when Rumble, I don't know how like Rumble, I've only sort of started hearing about it in the last couple of years. I don't know if it even existed 4 years ago. And Twitter was a completely compromised platform 4 years ago. Like, even the fact that there are these alternate avenues now is a huge change and enormously positive. Now, there's enormous forces against it, pushing against it, as with the ACMA bill in our very country. But the fact that there is an opposite avenue kind of also pushes the idea, like, imagine we become so divided that in the real world, we interact with each other on a daily basis based on where we live geographically. But in the online world, we live in two completely separate societies, like the whole parallel societies idea. There's one which is on Twitter and Rumble and all the rest of it, and believes that the world is completely different to the side that is on your Facebooks and your Meta and your regular mainstream newscasts. And I don't know, it sounds kind of divisive, and it sounds like it could lead to some conflict potentially, but I think I see that as only a positive for there to be a divide deepening, because I think one side is so clearly in the right.
Wasn't that the whole idea of the market's going to go and decide that from now on, instead of kind of propping up one thing? Or are you just going to say, well, do you want the free speech platform and to support that, or do you want to go with another platform that might just shut you down? Cost benefit analysis, all that type of thing.
Yeah, well, in that scenario, the market would decide, except for the fact that the taxes of all of the people on the free speech side would still be going towards the corporations because of course taxation is not voluntary and does not allow for market decision of what's the best use of funds. It's all really fucked up, but I do see more hope since the kind of advent of that the Rumble. And I remember but I don't want to get this wrong. Which year was it? I reckon it was the 2018 US midterms.
Oh yeah.
And at that time I would say that, like, there was the censoring part of the censoring and clamping down on social media of the government was at the highest point it had ever been, because Donald Trump was 2 years into his presidency. And so therefore, everything was Donald Trump is a monster piece of shit, etc. And they needed to clamp down on Twitter and Facebook because that's how Donald Trump had tweeted his way into the White House. And so it was at its most heightened security against it. And there was the least dissenting voices because they hadn't even come to grips with what exactly they were rebelling against was. And there was this, and I'll never forget it, there was this meme page on Facebook called Liberty Memes. Now, I don't know if you've come across Liberty Memes. I don't even know if it still exists. They used to, recently they kind of have to keep restarting again and again and again because they'd get banned or blocked or whatever. But at the time, they had never been touched. And there were several other sort of pages in that vein. And there was another one called Ron Paul's Bat. And it was just Ron Paul with a baseball bat as the image. And they just posted like libertarian memes back when memes were far less sophisticated. And I used to think far simpler shit was funny. Whereas now you need to have 3 tiers of irony to get a laugh out of me. But at the time I thought, like, this is great, like amazing. And it was kind of almost a news source, is you'd keep up with what was happening recently in the races and whatnot. And at the midterms, about, I can't remember if it was 3 or 4 days before the midterms, all of these pages disappeared off Facebook. Millions, if not, like, I think it was hundreds of thousands, if not millions of followers. These pages just disappeared. and you couldn't find them, and you couldn't find anything anywhere, and there would be like sort of people scrambling to make new versions of them and asking where have they gone and what's happening and whatnot. And then 2 days after the midterms, they all just reappeared again.
Okay.
And and no one
yeah.
ever talked about it in the news or the media or anything. And I thought I was like dreaming. I was like, and I was living in Australia, so like no one here was aware of what was happening. And over there, they were kind of like, what's just happened? We've just been deleted and blocked and whatnot. These, like, it was just systematically all the pages, blank, radio silence. It was supposed to be the blue wave at that time against Trump, and complete radio silence. And then they just propped up back 2 days later. No one ever spoke about it, and it was never a headline story. You probably couldn't even dig it up in old news stories now. You might be able to find something archaic somewhere. But if that is not the most blatant, like, abuse, obvious, abuse of power, use of corporate interests in a company like Facebook, like, they were compromised so hard, even back then, even way before anyone knew that any of these were compromised.
Yeah, I'm sure it was just a glitch though, but
Yeah. Another in the long line of coincidences that we've had to endure over the years.
How dare you question or say that anything nefarious is done, especially by big tech? I mean,
yeah, I mean, yeah, and I mean, we've the Twitter files thing where now it's all way out in the open. But like, I remember at the time, I was just like stunned. I could not believe that this was happening. It was almost like a precursor to the COVID lie. Like, the COVID lie was the first time where I was experiencing something polar opposite to what was being said in the media and in real time. I was, I went to the tradie protest on the Westgate, and as it was just peaceful, frustrated, pursued and attacked by police the whole day, provoked protest where most of the people were your average everyday Australians, just frustrated and angry and protesting against mandates. I got in the car to go home, and on the radio they called us neo-Nazi extremists who were trying to tear down the fabric of society. And in real time, there was this disconnect between what I was experiencing and what was being said through the official channels. And this was kind of a precursor to that, where in real time, I went from that initial little bit of red pilling. I had half a red pill. That someone, there's these midterm elections supposed to be a blue wave. Oh, your dissenting voices that you rely on for news every day, not there, disappeared, glitched out.
Well, fun fact, I was told today, I didn't verify this, it's the 2-year anniversary of the was it 2 or 3 year anniversary of the Westgate protest? Let me check.
Is it really? Oh,
supposedly.
I had a that's worth celebrating. That was heaps of fun. What a day.
Let's see. Second anniversary.
Damn. Well, I was going to show a video of that, and then I decided against it, decided to show a different video. But if I'd known that 2-year anniversary, because that was, what a day. That was really something.
Yeah.
But anyway, and I suppose the moral of that story is, sorry?
How are your feet afterwards?
I walked 30 kilometers. I was cramping all of that night and all the next day. It was not good. But I suppose the moral of that whole story, and the moral of the whole Russell Brand thing is essentially, the moral of today is that the media is constantly lying to you.
Yes.
And in more recent times, and we're almost predicting a lie here, we can also almost anticipate what the next lie is going to be, and you can already see the starting of it. And I know we haven't really talked about the Indigenous Voice to Parliament all that much, and I know you're not a fan of discussing it ad nauseum, as it's all we seem to hear about. But we are going to have to talk about it at some point.
Yeah, for sure. No, I think I'm like most Australians, and I'm just a meh kind of thing on it. It's like, I understand the significance of it, both from the yes and the no side. I can see both arguments, but yeah, I just don't really care. That's probably more divisive than actually saying I'm on one side or the other, I think, because
I think you're a piece of shit now. That's way worse than someone who's on the yes side. No, look, I get the I do get the idea that I can't remember who said this, and it's a long running theme of this show to paraphrase and misquote people and not give them credit. So I'm going to continue this long running tradition.
Cool. Awesome.
I forget who said it, but someone said that the whole idea of the government and the state growing is going to be aided by the fact that they're going to allow very violent and angry and heated disagreement on very limited specific topics, and not ever allow the discussion of the important things that actually matter, like, say, dismantling the entire state because the whole thing is a group of thugs and criminals. But what they will allow you to discuss in a very heated fashion is things like the voice, which is essentially whether this one bureaucratic, extra bureaucratic layer is added to government or not, which in the grand scheme of things absolutely does not matter in the slightest.
I beg to differ. I think it's whether or not middle-aged women can virtue signal to the point where they want to virtue signal. Personally,
is that the debate that's actually being had? Is whether middle-aged women are allowed to virtue signal to their heart's desire?
That seems to be. It seems to. I don't know. I don't know what the deal is with the kind of. Especially the yes team, where it's just like it seems like a big virtue signal to me, especially when you see, I don't really pay attention to the news as we've talked about privately, but I just see from like social media clips and stuff, it's all just these white people who are looking to push this agenda affecting the indigenous. And yeah, it's mostly women and mostly older women, but you see some other men as well. And it's like, well, what are you doing? I mean, I don't get if this is you being like genuine that you think this is a good idea for another group, or you think politically this is a good thing, or you just want to feel better about yourself. I don't know, because see, that's just my cynicism for it all, though.
I think, and we've got an episode later on scheduled with someone to dismantle all the arguments on the yes and no side of the voice. But to me, it seems like the reason that there is this really fervent desire on behalf of middle-aged women to virtue signal is because this is kind of a culmination of how their worldview needs to still make sense. Like that worldview of the center left world is progressive, and this world is slowly going to churn away from racism and your Donald Trumps and your populism and your fascists, and everyone who doesn't agree with me is a Nazi, and we're slowly increasing the welfare state, and the world is slowly becoming a more egalitarian society. This idea, I think, has been broken to some extent. Starting with Trump, but also continuing with various other reasons. I think that the right is in some cases at least turning away from that and not allowing that to be the unquestioned view of the direction that the world is going. And this kind of thing is exactly like, this has to happen for their worldview to continue to make sense. Like, we need to make this progressive step for me to believe that the country is overall still agreeing with me, and that everything that the news tells me is true, and that all these causes which make me feel good will actually make me feel good and will actually make a difference. And to contend with the opposite of that is too frightening, and is something that many of these cases that you're talking about in particular are incapable of doing. I don't think that many of these people, would be capable of examining their own inconsistencies enough to actually change their minds. But I think that's probably behind that specific identity group that you're talking about.
That makes sense, because you've seen kind of like this labor sweep throughout state and federal parliament. So yeah, it's just kind of it's got to all my I'm playing Tetris and all my blocks have to fall down and disappear. So yeah, no, that's interesting take. I've never heard that before.
Well, I've never shared it before. This is a first time scoop on Collectivitis. There you
Nice.
go. The broader point that I was going to connect these two ideas with, though, was that it's very clear that the media's portrayal of the voice is extremely positive, because, as we said, it goes completely in line with this idea that everything the media tells you is right, and all the things that we tell you make you feel good actually help and make you feel good. And that's we're actually the egalitarian heroes, white horsing, saving the poor indigenous man that we say we are. And therefore the portrayal of these things is very positive. And I'd like to share a video of a recent portrayal that they've had. And this is kind of also the other reason that we're talking about, is that recently there's been a march in favor of the yes vote. that's gone through the whole of Australia.
Yeah, I saw some clips of that.
Yeah, so there's a short clip in that about that in that regard.
What do we want? Yes! When do we want it? Now!
Until this weekend, there has been a certain relentless sense of decline in the yes case for the referendum. Relentless decline in the polls.
The latest poll from Redbridge shows that the yes vote has dropped under 40% in every state around the country other than Victoria.
Relentless attacks in the parliament.
A divisive Canberra-based voice proposal.
Relentless reporting of divisions and contradictions in the yes camp, and misleading accusations of racism.
Marcia Langton, an architect of The Voice, in the spotlight for these comments.
That changed yesterday when, even surprising some organisers, tens of thousands of people marched across the country, in big cities and small towns, in support of the yes case.
It's such a marvellous turnout.
At the same time, the last few days have seen the disciplined messaging of the no campaign start to unravel.
So we're more likely to get treaties if people vote no?
Yeah, because then we have to do the hard, on the 15th of October, if it's a no vote, that's when the real work starts.
For months.
All right, before we comment too much on it, there's something that I wanted to draw your attention to from that video. Tens of thousands of people marching across Australia. Now, let's focus on those words. Tens of thousands of people marching. Now, I don't know what you saw. I saw a couple of thousand, maybe Fed Square. That was impressive. They weren't marching. They met at Fed Square, but whatever. So tens of thousands across the country. And most of the snapshots are of smallish groups. Now, this is for something that the media is clearly in favor of. Like, despite declining numbers of, despite declining numbers in the polls of the yes vote has been reinvigorated, and there's cracks.
Yeah, I know, it's back, baby.
Yeah, and I don't think there's any evidence of any of that. And the cracks was supposed to be Warren Mundine saying something about treaty. Like, that's the cracks showing in the no campaign. Whatever. Okay, cool. If that's the story you want to spin, that's the story you want to spin. But that is the corporate mainstream media. I'll show you another example of their coverage of a way cooler protest, which was the anti-mandates kill the bill protest. And I want you to pay attention to how they describe the number of people right at the beginning of the video, the number of people that are attending this protest. So pay special attention to that.
Good evening. A sea of protesters has again descended on the city, with a crowd numbering in their thousands staging a largely peaceful demonstration against mandates and the pandemic bill. Palpable anger was directed at Daniel Andrews, who, according to the latest opinion poll, is on track for a third term as Premier. State political reporter Mark Santamartino.
Shaded by the trees of Flagstaff Gardens, protesters gathered en masse in their largest and loudest demonstration yet against mandates and the Premier's proposed pandemic laws. Their march began on the steps of Parliament, funneling past perplexed Christmas shoppers on Burke.
All right, you get the point. So the numbering in their thousands is the first, and just like the little insidious snipes that they throw in there. So they're numbering in their thousands, and this is their largest one yet. So at the thousands, they've peaked. That's as many as there have been. So not only is this one in their thousands, they've all been in their thousands prior to this, which, prior to that point, they had been in there at least tens of thousands at a conservative estimate. This is in their thousands. Now, that might seem an insignificant point. But I think the point, the only point really to a march or a protest or anything, especially a non-violent one, such as these two that have been, is the only point is how many people were there. That's the only point that really matters to anyone in the protest, in the march itself, is how big is our show of support and our show of force here. Everything else doesn't really matter. Unless you manage to hyperinflate your numbers through a particularly favourable media story, the only thing that matters is essentially what number they say is the number of people that went there. Because if by saying in their thousands, that is a minuscule fraction of Australian society.
It's like 2,000 people.
Exactly. Yeah, in their thousands. It was at least more than 1,000.
Yeah.
But you know, we can't say exactly how many there were, but it was at least more than 1,000.
And then we're being kind. We're being kind to them by saying
exactly.
that.
And then they throw in the snipe of you know, they marched against the mandates and against Dan Andrews, who seems overwhelmingly likely to win a third term in Parliament, which it was true in the end. But, you know, the complete opposite of what they're saying with the yes vote. They're saying, you know, the no vote's starting to show cracks, which is supposed to be you know, it's that whole propaganda wheel of trying to insidiously get your point across while making it seem like news. And the insidious point in both these cases, in the first one, it's that, you know, the yes vote's coming back and they're going to make it, and the no vote's starting to crumble. And the insidious point of the other one was, you know, this bunch of no hopers are going to lose the next election, and there's a couple of thousand of them, and they're very loud. And even though it looks like a large number of them, now the footage tells a very different story, and to their credit, they show the footage as well. But yeah, the disconnect between the media and the truth is on full view in just about every time there is something that is like a culturally significant battle. And as we said, like, we don't even think that this is a particularly important clash, but it still is infuriating when you see
Definitely. And
the
just
lies they're willing to tell.
Seeing the media work, I noticed there was another one. It was the South Australian protest, the Yes protest in South Australia. Did you see this?
No.
Okay, so there was a no protest in South Australia, and the Yes came to counter protest them. And the Yes were quite, I think it was like they were saying they were quite abusive and leveling, and then the very, very aggressive type of things, saying like, you know, you're all this, you're all that. I don't know if there are any threats or anything made, but generally just they weren't gentlemanly. Let's put it that way. Then what happened afterwards is you had the media apologize for them. So what they put in the news articles, even everyone's favorite conservative news, Sky News, put this. It was like a rogue group, a fringe group of the yes vote did that. So what they're saying is, well, this isn't actually the yes vote, even though these people are getting aggressive. We're just saying that's the fringe group of it all. And I just think it's hilarious because it's not done for other protests. You know, you look at those sack Dan Andrews, kill the bill, anti-lockdown protests. The fringe were painted as the majority, and now they're saying, no, this is just the fringe. Don't worry, this isn't meant to represent the yes vote, even though I think it would represent the at least the high levels of the yes vote.
Yeah, no, agreed. And look, I am gonna look for and find the on the second anniversary of the Westgate protests. You've made it too enticing to ignore. It'll take me just a minute. I will find the video I was going to show because it illustrates that point exactly.
Good evening. Selfish tradies have brought shame upon our proud city, storming the Westgate Bridge and attacking police in the heart of Melbourne. The unruly mob, fighting against the vaccine, which will give us the chance to reopen, brought streets to a standstill. Dozens were arrested as they led police on a dangerous game of cat and mouse, threatening this is only the beginning. Neary Ty was there.
Giving us a chance to reopen.
Yeah. Throwing that in on top. The first line, selfish
tradies.
Selfish tradies marauding through the streets. Now that's a cool protest. That is a cool protest. You piece of shit. You sack of shit. That's what a cool protest looks like. Like police, a dangerous game of cat and mouse. Cat and mouse doesn't get played unless the cat chases the mouse. Like you realize this, the dangerous game of cat and mouse is because the police. Anyway.
Well, who is the cat and who's the mouse in that situation? Like, I don't know.
They're saying the cat is the police because the protesters kept running away from the police, and the police was chasing them, trying to stop them being a violent gang.
Watching that protest, it seemed like the tradies were really the cat, and then Melbourne was the bloody mouse, not the police. Like,
oh, Melbourne's the mouse. No, I think that's too metaphorical. I'm not sure.
I know. Getting a bit too deep here.
But yeah, no, that illustrates the point exactly. Like when the point overall is essentially you can tell what the media's angle or the media's spin is going to be by determining whether the thing that's being looked at is in favor or is against the narrative. Now, the idea that a whole heap of frustrated, angry, everyday people were on the streets protesting against mandates suggests that there's something wrong, that something needs to be looked at again about mandates, that mandates are not the foregone conclusion that everyone seems to pretend that they are. They're not the absolute good that everyone pretends that they are. The number of protests, the huge number of protests there, is supposed to make you think, hey, there's something else here. And the only point of protests, other than civil disruption for attention, is to gain attention in the media. And the outcome was the most dishonest portrayal of what that day was about humanly imaginable. Selfish tradies shut down the Westgate because they're racist Nazi pieces of shit. Like,
I love that.
You can imagine the frustration of going on this protest. Like, hey, I am voiceless. I am voiceless. I am being stood down. I'm going to lose my job because of something so bullshit that today, not 3 years later, does not matter in the slightest. Not 2 years later, does not matter in the slightest. I'm going to lose my job because of this. I need someone to take note. Someone take note. Let's get a huge number of people here so that the media and the people at home who are so blinded by it are forced to contend with this idea. And the outcome are these dishonest pieces of shit going racist, Nazi, selfish protesters blocking the streets of Melbourne. Shut the fuck up. In Max's absence, I've sworn a lot more today.
Oh, good. That's fucking awesome.
The last thing I wanted to get your thoughts on was so the yes vote is trying to resurrect the hopes of its hopes by doing these marches and protests and whatnot. And there's apparently there's a no vote protest march that's being organized. And you had some thoughts on that. I'd love to hear.
Yeah, I mean, well, looking at that media bias for the yes vote, be interesting to see how it's portrayed. But do you notice that we have had a bit of these black clad type of Yahtzee type of people? I hate to make a prediction, but I would not be surprised if these guys, like they did at the women's protest, I think they had a row with like non-Nazi skinheads. The other day I read that. I wouldn't be surprised if these guys rock up, and if they do, that's all it's going to talk about is that, the yes vote the no vote, or the yes vote as well, is just filled with neo-Nazis and they're these evil people, and this is what the no vote is, and this is why you should vote yes, and this is who they all are. And we tried to speak to people about them once again taking that fringe element and portraying it as the majority, as opposed to saying like, these dickheads showed up, had nothing to do with it, it'll just be this bloody tirade, I'm sure just for clicks, but who knows.
Yeah, look, I think I wouldn't be surprised at all if that happens. And it's good. You'll look very prophetic if that's exactly what happens. I think, look, there's every chance that happens. There's every chance especially if there's like an anti-fascist counter protest that's being organized, which I'm sure there already is. Then that opens the door for those guys. Now, whether they're real or whether they're plants, they're very suspicious either way.
I reckon they're trolls. That's what I reckon.
Really?
I reckon they're trolls. They're just lolcats in disguise.
Yeah, but if they are trolls, like the outcome is that they're not actually trolling both sides. They're enormously hurting one side. Like with the Let Women Speak rally, the outcome was that they ended up completely overshadowing the point of the event and allowing the media to frame it however they wanted and make it about Nazis, completely disregarding what the actual point of the event was, and in fact aligning the Let Women Speak women with Nazis. So if they're trolls, they're very one-sided. They're very lopsided trolls, or they're naive about the way they're going to be portrayed.
Well, if you're a troll, you don't care though. You just want a reaction.
True. No, and that's true. That's a fair point. Me trying to impose my my morality onto trolls, like, come on, guys, care about causes.
I don't know. I just say that because whether they are plants, whether they are genuine, whether they are whatever, it's very like stupid. I don't think any reasonable person, but again, they are bloody Nazis, so they're not reasonable people. But like, why a reasonable person would do that? I mean, it's just.
I think the decision to have a no protest thing is strategically stupid anyway, because the whole point of the no protest, the whole reason the no vote is gaining traction, is not because of the no camp doing a particularly good job. It's because the yes camp is like the yes vote, and telling people you have to vote this way to be a good person is rubbing people up the wrong way. Like their whole fervent desire to make you care about this topic and to label you as something if you don't agree with them. I think the average, non-decided person's kind of like, shut the fuck up. Like, I'm not going to vote for you now just because you're such a loser. And that happens organically without the no vote. If anything, having a no campaign kind of makes it like, both sides are kind of trying to push this on me and make me care. I might as well just pick yes.
Yeah, because my mum's telling me to vote yes, so I may as well do it, or whatever the case may be. I don't know, the no people, from what I've seen, this is all just like second, third hand information, but it's like it's really not just understanding, just like shut up and let's just let it kind of play its course. Let these guys kind of be the stupid ones. Let our figureheads kind of speak. And then, we'll see how it goes. Let's see how it goes. It'll be interesting. Maybe. Hopefully.
We'll see how it goes. And look, we've thrown out some predictions, so we can look really prophetic to our 3.5 viewers if we are correct in those predictions. So that'll be very exciting for you and I. We are at the hour mark, so we better wrap it up there. For those of you who don't already, like, subscribe, follow us, do all of it on YouTube, Spotify, Instagram, Twitter, X. We're not on Rumble, but maybe we should be. Maybe if we continue with the racist tirades that we've gone on today, we will get banned off YouTube. So one can only hope. All right. Thanks for watching. See you later. See you next time.
Peace.
Peace.